We're back on Crossroads with the Burdens. This is episode 9. We've been busy, and this might be the last podcast before Christmas. You think we'll get Aaron back to do another one?
I don't know. I guess it's going to be hard to get the three of us back anywhere. What do you think, Aaron?
Yeah. So, but we've enjoyed bringing these to you guys, and hopefully y'all have as well. Got a couple different topics today. Wanted to start off with some racing news. Finally got my announcement to come out with Jordan, and Jordan and John, and I thought that went really well. And I'm doing some simulator work this week, so doing that Friday, and we're actually going to Golden Corral headquarters today.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing Lance and Skip at their new headquarters. Is Raleigh or Durham?
Their headquarters are in Raleigh. So this time of year, we're going around to a bunch of different partners and a lot of partnership meetings. We got a lot of things coming up with racing, and I'm trying to go to the archery trade show, and then I'm going to the SHOT Show, and we've got some other hunts we're doing with customers as well. So busy time of the year for us. But on the racing side of things, we're actually gonna test Rockingham in January.
Oh, really?
So that's gonna be cool. Get your mic up a little bit so we can hear you a little bit better. But we're gonna test Rockingham in January, and
What's the date on that?
I think it's like the 28th or something. It's the week after SHOT Show.
Okay.
So luckily, I didn't book that on the same time. But it'll be a bunch of teams there, and they repaved the track a couple years ago. But I'm sure there'll still be a lot of tire wear there, don't you think?
Not as much after a fresh pave. I don't know. It won't take but a minute to feel it and know. That's the wonderful thing about Rockingham and Darlington back in the day, is a tire wear. So you really had to be conscious of taking care of your stuff, but the car still, the number one thing was the nose working, the nose turning, and that gave you most time the kind of forward bite you needed on exits.
So you won a Cup race and an Xfinity race at Rockingham?
Yep.
What do you remember about, what one did you win first?
The Bush race first, and that would have been 91, I believe, with Mr. Dillard.
The 31 car?
No, it's a number. This was the Gwaltney 27 car.
That was...
Yeah, so that would have been 90, might have been 92.
How did you get in that situation with that team?
Well, I'd already been, had run the year before with Mr. Dillard out of Charlottesville. So I left Charlie Henderson in Abington. I'm pretty certain that was 91. And then went to, then we were full-time. Rick Wren was our crew chief. Rick could make me haul the mail. And we had left Daytona, finishing third to Dale and Ernie, and won Rockingham. Then the crazy thing is, we started having that, they were Buicks, and the Lumina had just come out, so we had 3 new Luminars, and a crazy little thing called a residual valve in our brake caliper was making the brakes, every time I touched the brakes pads would not release from the caliper. And all I know is one, we didn't have no corner speed anymore, and 2, we were burning the brakes up. I mean, at places where you didn't use a lot of brakes, the rotors are red, and it ruined. it ruined our relationship with me and Rick, and it was all over that residual valve, and we lost all of our momentum very shortly after the Rockingham here when we put the Buicks up and we started running these new Luminas, and Rick just didn't know. Freddie Fryer found it in the winter of 1992. I remember coming home from the Cove, and he called me and said, "I found your brake problem." And it was the residual valve supposed to be taken out of the brake caliper once you buy the system. And poor Rick Wren just didn't know. And
What was his reasoning? What was Rick's reason?
he just didn't know.
But he put it in there for a
comes in
reason.
the box
Okay.
that you buy, and you have to take it out so that the pads release from the rotor. Well, I mean, I could go to Orange County and I would have brakes glowing in 10 laps, like we're in Martinville on a 70-lap run. I mean, just crazy. And Freddie Fryer fixed it because I hadn't changed. But I mean, you know, I was questioning myself. And anyway, it's a good example how little things that you're missing can really affect a team's performance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rick Wren was a smart crew chief.
Yes, he was. Rick, with Mike Swain in 1990, I was sharing a ride with Morgan Shepherd. Mike owned it. Texas Pete was a sponsor. Rick and I ran top 5, top 10 in Charlotte when the Busch guys just didn't run with the Cup guys. The Cup guys dominated the series at those tracks. Rick, really an underrated crew chief, just a really smart guy. He never really got the opportunity to show his savviness and thinking out of the box. Rick.
He did in the Truck Series.
He did for me for a long time. I mean, hell, we dominated the Charlotte race. It was a race we ran out of gas. There was a bunch of races. He was just a really, really good guy, a hard worker, and nobody was more passionate about a race car than Rick Wren.
Talking about some older guys like that, I saw something a couple years ago. It was a Petty podcast, and they asked a question on who they thought one of the best drivers ever worked with, and it was actually Felipe Lopez, and he said your name.
Really?
He said that you were one of the most underrated guys.
Well, I appreciate that. And Felipe was
Felipe a crew chief too?
Yeah. So when Freddie Fryer left, right before 2 months before we went to Daytona with the 31 car in 1994, rookie Cup year, we didn't have a crew chief for a month and a half. We missed Daytona, we missed Rockingham. We made Richmond on the second day by 200th of a thousandth of a second. Terry Labonte almost went home that day. He got the last provisional. He won the championship that year, but it was just a tough field, man. But anyway, Felipe came on board with Ronnie Crooks, and I think they came from Texas. And man, Felipe just smart, and with him and Ronnie Crooks working together, they turned that program around. We didn't have nothing, man. I mean, bless Mr. Dillard's heart, he's passed now, but we just didn't have the resources. But we made it was a nightmare of a season. But if you look at the things that we did do, we finished second at Pocono. We set a track record at Charlotte that lasted over a decade. We had some days together with nothing that was pretty amazing.
And the end of that deal was just Mr. Dillard tried to go to the Cup Series?
Man, so the first year he had free set of tires. He had he had all his tires are free from Bob Newton, who owned Hoosier Tires. And we're getting our motors from Ron Hutter, and Mr. Newton was helping with that bill. The next year in 95, Hoosier was out of the sport, and the expenses had caught up with Mr. Dillard, and he was having to spend a lot of it out of his pocket. And, we finished 6th at Michigan late summer, and Mr. Dillard, they fired me the next day. And I had already been talking to Bill Davis. They knew I had to leave. And I don't know, looking back on it, man, if Mr. Dillard was doing whatever he could, he put Greg Sachs in the car. They kept struggling, and obviously in '95, the MB&A team, we were hauling the mail right off the bat.
Yeah, it's interesting how it all played out. But then, so you go with Mr. Dillard, you win Rockingham, and you go through all of those things, and then, it seemed like 2 years later you go back to Rockingham in the Cup car, and you win again in a different car in a different series. So, what do you think it was about Rockingham that you liked so much and made you good there?
So, some of the mile and a half, the bigger tracks, our wheelhouse was a mile and a half. We were just really consistent on those tracks. But Rockingham and Darlington was just always really clear to me exactly what I needed in the car. The cost of the tire wear and all, I always knew what I needed. Not that the team or the car could give it to me, but I knew if I had this and that, I was unbeatable. If I had those things, I could use different ways of driving the track that I could win the races. And we should have won a lot more at both Darlington and Rockingham. At the same time, I ran like a three-legged goat at both of them quite a few times where we just could not get the car. So a driver's not going to make up for it. So, Jeb, at the end of the day, I was lucky to have some teams give me good cars that were capable of winning.
Well, when you bring that up, look at like a Boris said. He was one of the best road course racers ever. Right. He goes to some places. He went to some places towards the end of his career on a road course and could barely make the race.
It's just hard
because the cars.
Yeah,
the
that's
cars.
Right.
You got to have both. You got to be a good driver, and you got to be able to get the most out of a car. But most of the people that are racing professionally are good. So if you give them a car, then it's over with.
No, I agree 100% with that. Some can make up a little bit more at some tracks than others, but nobody's going to make up. Nobody's going to take a 10th place car and win the race with it on most tracks. There's a few.
Well, look at Kyle Busch. You put him in a Gibbs Xfinity car, he's going to win every race almost. He got in other Xfinity cars the last 2 or 3 years and didn't win a race.
Kyle Busch is a good example of right now. Right now he made a career decision for whatever, and he would be, if he hadn't made that move, he would still be one of the dominating drivers. Nothing against where he at. They're an awesome team.
They're about to be a lot better. I feel like RCR's made a lot of good hires over the off season. I feel like they're gonna be a lot better. But you got to think with RCR, they look at what they went to Richmond, and the situation with Austin happened, whatever. But they dominated the race. Austin Dillon dominated the race at Richmond, and that I think they're gonna be good because Stuart Haas closing down. I think RCR made some good hires.
Is that right?
Yeah, there was 500 employees there, I believe. So a lot of those people moved around. So I think RCR is gonna be really good in the Cup Series next year. But yeah, Rockingham. You remember the first time I went to Rockingham? How bad I was in practice? because I was overdriving it. Remember that in the 27 state water heater truck?
Yeah.
I was so bad. I was so bad. It was and it wasn't. It was because I was used to late model stocks, and I was running in the corner probably 5 car lengths too deep. I just didn't know.
What car?
The truck, the first truck series started at Rockingham, the 27 Hillman truck, state water heaters.
I don't remember that being one of the races.
Yeah, that was one of the races, 2012.
Well, you were.
Me, you, and Jeremy went down there.
Yeah, you had.
It was bad.
You had a bad habit of driving the car like it was a qualifying lap with old tires, and then the minute that you had a rabbit around you, you were like, "Oh, I know now." But the problem is what we had adjusted to the car was hard to get it out.
Yeah.
So you got to remember that still now, because it's an easy thing to do with y'all not having any practice of trying to run a qualifying lap with tires and track service that's not going to allow you to do that in a race,
Yeah, I remember I started 27th, and Casey Kane flew in to race because they raced Saturday night, and our race was on Sunday. He started last, and I pretty much was last. And he followed me all the way through there. I got to 11th, and then I finally let him go. But I learned that day, right when the green flag started, everybody lifts. You lift so early. And now that race taught me a lot, and I finished 13th.
Yeah, you came on great. That year, you ran a wonderful race at Charlotte.
I finished 7th at Charlotte.
Yeah, that was one of the most exciting days I'd ever had the racetrack. You passed
the 3 truck,
and I think it was Ron Hornaday come in 3 and 4 on that last damn lap. You almost wrecked the first damn lap. You got it so crossed up going into damn 1. I was like, shit. Yeah. Anyway, you that was Mike gave you a lot for not much.
Yeah.
Those, what was it, 5 races? Yeah.
So it was, we had a pretty good deal there. And I remember in 2012, so I went and ran those races, and then I came back to the late model team, and we started winning a lot that year. And then the next year I got my break in the 4 truck. So Rockingham, going back there this year, is going to be really special. A lot of heritage there. Did Jeff win some races at Rockingham?
Yeah.
So, I got a pole there in the truck series. You and Jeff have won there. Harrison's never raced there, I don't believe. And then Harrison and I will be racing against each other in the Xfinity series. So he'll be there at the test too. So that'll be pretty neat. And I'm trying to get Harrison down here on the podcast and take him on a hunting trip. So that'll be pretty neat. Maybe we could get Jeff and Harrison on here. That'd be pretty cool.
Well, the last time that Jeff went hunting that I'm aware of,
he went duck hunting a couple years ago.
Well, this would have been over a decade ago. I told Jeff that day, that's the last time I'm cleaning his game for him. So if he goes with us over Christmas, if he bags something, he's gonna. I'll show him how, but he's gonna clean it.
What did he shoot?
He shot a wild turkey, and I had him plucking it while I was cleaning the ducks, and then I made the slit, and I said, "Oh, you gotta stick your hand in there and just keep on digging till there's nothing left." Long story short, there was stuff coming out of his mouth because it made him throw up. So I cleaned the turkey. I was like, that's the last damn time. No problem. I'll clean the turkey again for him. But that was funny.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm excited. I'm excited about Rockingham. But other thing I want to talk about, we just had Timber Creek, Tyler Tiller and his son Colton come down, and they've been a good partner of ours, and we had such a successful couple hunts with them. We went with the good folks at Honey Pot Hunting Club, and got him on his first black bear. That was pretty neat. And then we came back to the farm and got cold in a doe, and then one of our old target bucks came out, and Tyler made a good shot and got that done. We got all the hunts on video, and was pretty neat to get all that with him and his family. And but what I wanted to discuss about the deer situation is, you see on the hunting show Crossroads on the Sportsman Channel, and like you were saying a minute ago, I feel like we're teaching some people some practices with the way that you have created our food plots, and really wanted to talk about that for a minute. About you're seeing us harvest deer around food plots, but they're coming for the food. But the reason we're seeing the deer in the daylight hours and we're seeing an abundance of deer is what reason, you think?
Well, all wildlife needs food, water, and cover, right? So the main thing that we're doing that some are not doing is providing a lot of cover. So when people talk about bedding areas, what we're creating in a lot of cases is bedding areas near abundance of food source. So this is about habitat for all wildlife that just happen the deer, the white-tailed deer, and other big game benefit from it. So if you have cover, edge cover, that a bobwhite quail can flourish in, a white-tailed rabbit, and other small game, then the big game is going to use it. So it's as simple as that. You can manipulate it with planting things of a combination of grasses, herbs, foliage like grain sorghum, some radishes, some corn mixture, and leave it all year. Or you can have areas that you rotate with fire and you don't manipulate it all, like warm season grasses.
Do you plant the warm season grasses?
Yeah. But a lot of areas, look, the area where you bagged the deer on this farm,
You didn't plant anything there.
once in a lifetime deer, it's natural cover. It's all kind of broadleaf and grasses.
But it's 4 foot high.
It's at least 4. So if you walk in it 20 feet, you're disappeared.
And the deer like that.
The deer like that. So there's a bedding area. Water's not far from there. Food source is not far from there. So it's not just per chance that you saw that buck that evening and you went back that morning and harvest that deer. That deer has everything he needs, including during the rut, the does, because the does are bedding and living in that area. That's why that buck was there. So look, food plots are not designed just to harvest wildlife, particularly white-tailed deer. It is an added benefit, but we're using them in edges just to provide one of the sources of habitat. As we know, look, all wildlife flourishes from abundance of all kind of habitats, whether it's Oak Forest Initiative, whether it's planted pines and all kind of pines, and then all the manipulation we do with the thinning and the burning and the harvesting of pines, to grasses in the broadleaf that provide all the natural food source. So hey, it's always a combination.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that I've noticed is the bucks love cover. And anytime I've harvested big deer in the woods, or most of the time near a food plot, it's around big cover. Now, you see a lot of these places, they have wheat in the field and there's zero cover, and it looks like the deer is standing out in a golf course.
Well, they want to be safe, right? They want to
and
feel
they don't
safe,
like
and if they have something that alerts them of danger, they want to get away as quick as possible. That's why you don't need this huge large acreage of a food plot. I'd rather have a small Whitetail Institute plot in a hell of a lot of cover than the vice versa.
Yeah, that's right. 100%. So I thought that was something pretty interesting. Then another topic is it's middle of December. Most of the does are bred. Some are trickling back in to get bred now. But you hear a lot of people say, I don't want to shoot does right now because they're bred. They're big bucks have bred does. But our good friend Kip Adams at the National Deer Association, he studies deer and they put collars on deer and they literally do this for a living. And what he has assured me is we're not hurting anything, and the best thing you can do is shoot some does, and that helps to get bigger bucks and better quality bucks, because if you think about all the does eating a lot of the food source as well, so there's taking away food from the bucks. And then also you already have, he said, about a 75% doe ratio.
Well, that's only happened because a man shooting things that's got horn on it.
Yeah.
So that's not natural.
Yeah. So he said the best thing to do is still harvest does. We're going to try to shoot a couple more does on the piece of property that we're hunting. So if you're listening and you got a piece of property that you're trying to manage, you can still harvest does. And he actually just put out an article about this situation, about harvesting does this time of year and what that does to the herd. And then also the other thing is, when you're shooting does, be careful with shooting a button buck. And the rule that I've came up with, and we've only shot one button buck on the farm in the last 10 years, and that's because we do not shoot a deer that is by itself. If you shoot a deer that's by itself and it looks like a doe, 90% of the time,
antlers deer by itself, it's over a 50% chance it is a young button buck.
Yeah.
And you can't tell most of the time if it's one doe or buck by itself, but once you get a few out there, then you can always tell, that's a 9-month-old deer versus an ancient doe. But hey, man, you've seen it firsthand since you were a kid, because there weren't enough deer to practice quality deer management that started this movement that now is the Deer Association. It takes 4 to 6 years to really see the difference.
Yeah.
But if you harvest does, you will see the difference.
Not all the does.
No, but you harvest does of the amount of land you have, you will see, and that's why they call it quality whitetail. That's where Brian Murphy and the founder came from. You will see the quality of the whitetail improve. You're going to see the deer herd improve by harvesting does. It's proven. It's proven, particularly in the East Coast. It is proven. It's a science, and that's a wonderful thing. Like in Virginia, we have DMAP, so we have biologists taking our information from the jawbone to the weight, the diameter, the antlers, etc., and we're getting a report yearly from DWR biologists that are estimating and giving us what that
sometimes they're wrong.
Looks like.
Sometimes they're wrong with their estimation because
only because of the age, because it's hard.
You can't do it just off that. But that buck that Tyler just shot, I talked to Kip about it the other day. He wants me to take a molar out and get it sent in, but that deer, I believe, is probably 10 to 11 years old.
You showed me a picture of 2018, and he was
5 years old.
Oh, he was the man. His body had gone way back, like we all do when we get old. But you could tell it was the same deer.
Yeah, he lived on the farm, and he's been very smart. Hadn't seen him a lot the last couple of years. That was the first time I've seen him on hoof in 2 or 3 years.
It's kind of crazy, I don't know if I'm getting soft, but some of these older deer that's been a fixture of this particular piece of property for so long, You really, I feel odd about having someone harvest him.
Well, it's not a fenced-in pen, so
It's not a fenced-in damn pen. No,
oh,
but it is. We do want to show 100% respect to that animal that has
well,
lived on that farm for that long.
and I think we've got to the point now that we enjoy taking other people to harvest a deer. Like Tyler the other day. Look, I didn't want to shoot that deer. I've already shot a deer,
Gonna shoot him.
and you've shot a couple bucks the last couple years, and
Only because we were doing it for some of our partners. I mean, so I'm not going to shoot a buck this year, particularly out there. It's not going to happen. So I would you did a really good job with Tyler and Colton, come all the way from Oregon, which he's going to mount.
Yep.
That old deal, which is awesome. They had a father-son experience of a lifetime with harvesting a beautiful black bear with Chris hurting them and getting that buck and a doe. That doe was 118 pounds. That's a big.
I thought it was 108.
118.
Okay.
Yeah. Big doe.
Yeah, that's
milking.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that doe, if it's still milking, has a younger deer probably around him, a 9-month-old fawn probably.
I don't know. That's what I wanted you to ask Kip. So if a deer is milking now,
All right.
I would have thought that that's because the deer is pregnant, or is it because there's still the deer from last being born this summer still nursing? It must be still. It must be the younger fawn is still nursing.
I just asked him. He'll respond to me.
Because there's no way in hell I don't think a mammal is going to start having the breast milk that early. Because I mean,
that doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't make it. It's too long away for the fawn to be dropped.
No. But yeah, there's a couple different interesting things that we do on the farm. One other thing that has changed the game for us is the redneck blinds and hunting out of the blinds and eliminating scent. But a couple things that we do to eliminate scent and hunting pressure is we don't hunt a spot a lot. Like that spot we went to the other day, we hadn't been there all year.
No.
The other thing that we do is we use Wildlife Research Center's soap wash with our clothes, wash our bodies, just eliminate any scent that we can. And in the blind as well, you can keep the windows shut. So those 4 things, not overhunting a spot, doing your laundry, doing the bathing with scent, and then having an enclosed blind if you can.
Bathe?
Yeah, I try to bathe.
I didn't know you bathed over there.
Yeah, I do.
What do you think, Aaron? Did you smell that coming in here this morning?
But those are the things that have helped us. But we've killed plenty of deer out of a normal ladder stand too. But if you can get a blind where you can eliminate scent, and if you can't afford a blind, or you have a piece of property that you can't hunt a blind, is really making sure the wind is correct. If you know, if you're on a riverbank, have the wind going to the river. A place that the deer's not coming from, so you don't bust them. Because the number one thing I feel like people make a mistake on is overhunting a spot, busting a deer, and then they're out of there. Because the big buck's he's not gonna keep coming there. And like this time of year, the bucks are getting grouped back up. I think the rut's over with. The old bucks, they're gonna really start hammering the food. Now they've lost all their weight, and they're gonna be going to the food source. So if you have a big food source, corn, soybeans, or a big food plot, we love to plant no plow. It seems to work really good. It's got a bunch of different mixtures in it. And the no plow by Whitetail Institute, it seems like it holds the deer.
Yeah. Well, the redneck blind is an awesome way to observe wildlife being wildlife. for a long period of time. And like you said, the biggest thing is the sight, and then taking guests.
The scent. The biggest thing is
Excuse
scent.
me. The scent and the sight. But having guests, young and old, and the father and son this past week where they could talk.
Yep.
They could move around. It really makes it so you just don't have to sit there like that and watch every movement. It makes it more enjoyable. You're almost always going to have a really ethical shot. And it just makes it a lot more social that you could with guests.
Yep.
So there's a lot of benefits to it.
Yeah.
It's not something like you said though, Jeb. It's not for all hunting purposes.
No, it's not.
Because I mean, sometimes you just
want to hear. You want to be out in the middle of it. So,
Exactly.
But when it's raining or snowing or really cold, they're nice to be in.
Well, my boots are on the ground when it's snowing. So you sit in the redneck blind, I'm gonna be moving. There's nothing like walking in the woods. Cause look, the smell is hardly going nowhere, and things are moving. So the only thing you're dealing with is sight. So it's almost like hunting in the rain. You're not worried about nothing but seeing the wildlife where the wildlife sees you, and just enjoying it, just having fun. Let's hope that at some point we'll get some flurries or some snow in this part of Virginia.
One time when it's snowing, you shot at a deer we called one horn like 15 years ago.
Man.
When it was snowing.
I had that deer. I spotted the does and that dominant buck bedding down on the edge of a knoll overlooking the river. I had him.
And what did you do?
I'm on the other side of the river with my Seiko 270, which is a tack driver. It's a tack driver.
Sacco is how they say it.
Oh, Sacco.
Yeah.
Which is a tack driver. And I mean, I sat there and watched them. And when the doe stood up to go to feed, he stood up. And to this day, I don't know how I missed a deer.
You rushed it.
Maybe I did. I don't. I mean, it was clear. It wasn't nothing but daylight from one ridge to the other, and I'm resting on a log. How? I must have hit a daggone twig or something, a branch or something. But anyway, old One Horn was a dominant buck in that area for well over a decade.
And we never got him.
No, he must have died of old age.
Yeah. So, well, anyway, hope everybody enjoyed episode 9. We really enjoy doing these, and if you have some different questions and things and stories that you'd like to ask us, drop them in the comments on the social media post, and we'll try to answer them. But appreciate everybody listening, and be back on here soon.